I didn't know it that morning, but I was walking into the day everything was taken from me. Not slowly. Not by accident. It was already planned, signed, and waiting for me behind a closed office door. By the time I understood what was happening, my role in my own life had already been rewritten. I arrived at the bakery at 5 in the morning, the same way I had for years. The lights were still off. The street outside was quiet. Inside, the smell of dough and sugar filled the air because the starter had been left to rise overnight. This place ran on routines like that. My routines. I tied my apron and started preparing trays. Flour on the counter. Mixer on low. Everything felt normal until I noticed the office light glowing at the back. That never happened this early. When I walked toward the office, I saw my parents inside. Papers covered the desk. Thick papers, legal ones. My mother sat stiffly, hands locked together. My father stood beside her, reading the same page again and again. They both looked up when I entered. No smiles, no greeting. "Sit down," my mother said. I didn't. I stood there with flour still on my hands. My father cleared his throat. "We've made a decision about the bakery." That word, decision, felt heavy. My mother spoke quickly. "We're signing the bakery over to your sister." The room went quiet. I heard the mixer running in the kitchen, steady and loud. "To Madison?" I asked. My father nodded. "She has a marketing background. She understands growth, modern business." I looked at the papers on the desk. My name wasn't on any of them. "She'll take over operations starting next week," he continued. "You can stay on as staff." Staff? Before I could respond, the office door opened. Madison walked in like this was expected. Perfect hair, designer blazer, leather portfolio under her arm. She smiled with confidence, not surprise. "Good morning," she said. "I brought the plans." She spread blueprints across the desk, sliding the legal papers aside as if they no longer mattered. "We need to modernize the space," she said. "New displays, updated colors. The rustic look feels outdated." That rustic look had been rebuilt by me when the bakery was close to shutting down. My mother nodded. "She's done a lot of research." Madison flipped through charts and printed reports. "We rely too much on tradition. Younger customers want cleaner branding and efficiency." I asked quietly, "What about the signature items?" She answered without looking at me, "Some will need to go. The cinnamon rolls, the croissants, the cakes people drove hours to buy." My father added, "She's also reviewed staffing." Madison smiled. "Some employees are using outdated methods. We'll introduce performance tracking." That was when it hit me. This wasn't a family conversation. It was a takeover. Madison closed her portfolio and looked at me. "You're a good baker," she said. "You can stay, you'll report to me." I turned to my parents. They wouldn't meet my eyes. That was the moment I understood this decision hadn't been made this morning. It had been made long before I walked through the door. The rest of that day passed like I was moving underwater. My hands kept working, but my head wasn't there anymore. I baked on instinct, not thought. Dough folded, ovens timed, orders filled. No one mentioned the meeting again, as if saying it out loud might make it real. Madison stayed. She didn't leave after the office meeting. She walked into the kitchen like she had always belonged there. She didn't ask questions. She didn't watch how things were done. She just observed, arms crossed, eyes scanning everything. At 8:30, she pulled out her phone and started typing. By 9, she called everyone together. "I'll be overseeing operations starting immediately," she said. "We'll be transitioning into a more efficient workflow." No one spoke. Mrs. Patterson stood near the decorating table, her hands still dusted with powdered sugar. Tommy leaned against the delivery rack. Sarah froze behind the counter. Madison pointed at a printed schedule. "Shifts are changing. Roles are being reassigned." I stepped forward. "We already have a system." She looked at me calmly. "This system is temporary." Temporary? She handed me a new assignment. Measuring flour, washing bowls, packaging leftovers, tasks I hadn't done in years. "I need you to focus on basics for now," she said. "We'll reassess later." Later never meant later. It meant never. That afternoon, a man I didn't recognize walked in wearing a press shirt and holding a tablet. "This is Jeffrey," Madison said. He's a consultant. Jeffrey nodded without smiling and started asking questions no one could answer quickly. Output per hour, waste ratios, time per unit. He wrote everything down, even when it made no sense. Mrs. Patterson whispered to me, "Why is he timing me?" I didn't have an answer. The next morning, Madison arrived with coffee from the chain down the street. She hadn't learned how to start the ovens. She didn't know which mixer jammed if pushed too fast. She didn't care. She stood behind the counter while I packed orders. "I'll be handling customer communication from now on," she said. "We need consistent messaging." Consistent with what, she didn't say. By midday, she removed the handwritten specials board. She replaced it with a printed sign listing 3 items. Clean, simple, empty. A regular customer asked about the apple turnovers. "We've discontinued those," Madison said without looking up. The customer hesitated. "Since when?" Madison shrugged. "They didn't align with our updated standards." The customer left without buying anything. No one spoke about it, but everyone noticed. That evening, as I cleaned the counters, I saw Madison in the office again, door half closed, phone pressed to her ear. Her voice dropped, different, sharper. "The transition is smoother than expected," she said. "They have no idea." I stopped moving. "Give it 6 months," she continued. "Once everything's documented, we can move forward." Move forward to what, she didn't say. But something in her tone told me this wasn't about running a bakery at all. I stayed frozen where I was, listening, knowing that whatever she was planning didn't include me or anyone else still working there. I didn't mean to hear what came next. I wasn't spying. I wasn't trying to catch her. I was just standing there, holding a tray, because my body forgot how to move. Madison's voice came through the thin office wall, low and confident. "Yes, Derek," she said, "everything's on schedule." I had never heard that name before. "The staff is adjusting," she continued. "Especially her, she's too focused on her work to notice what's happening." Her, that was me. I eased closer to the door without making a sound. 6 months is more than enough, Madison said. "Once all the recipes are documented and standardized, there's no reason to keep this structure." There was a pause, then a laugh. "No, of course the staff won't stay. That defeats the whole purpose." My chest tightened. "Corporate buyers don't want personalities," she went on. "They want consistency, systems, cheap labor. The brand is what matters." Corporate buyers. My grip slipped on the tray. I caught it just in time. "The numbers look great on paper," Madison said. "I adjusted the reports so my parents would stop worrying." Adjusted. "They think I'm saving the business," she added. "They have no idea they're handing it straight over." Handing it over. I stepped back slowly, my heart pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. "She won't be a problem," Madison said calmly. "By the time she figures it out, everything will be locked legally." The call ended. I heard her chair slide back. I moved away from the door just as she stepped out, her expression smooth, professional, unchanged. "There you are," she said. "I need you to redo the Morrison cake design." I stared at her. "Why?" She smiled. "Too complicated. We don't need custom work anymore." The Morrison cake had been planned for months. Hand-sculpted sugar flowers. The bride had cried when she approved the design. "I'll speak to the client," Madison added. "No confusion." Meaning I wouldn't be allowed to. That night I drove home in silence. No radio, no calls, just the sound of the road. Everything finally made sense. The sudden takeover, the consultants, the documentation, the way she was stripping the bakery down piece by piece. She wasn't building anything. She was preparing it for sale. And my parents didn't know, the staff didn't know, the customers didn't know. But now I did. And worse, I realized something else. She had been planning this long, before she ever walked into that office. Every late night I stayed, every problem I fixed, every recipe I perfected. I had built something valuable enough for her to steal. When I reached my apartment, I didn't turn on the lights. I sat in the dark, replaying her words again and again. 6 months. Corporate buyers. Locked legally. I wasn't just being pushed out. I was being erased. The next morning, I went in earlier than usual. I thought if I stayed busy, my mind would quiet down. It didn't. Madison was already there again. Laptop open, coffee beside her. She nodded at me like nothing had happened the night before. I watched her carefully now. Every note she took, every photo she snapped of workstations, every question she asked that didn't really have anything to do with baking. She called my parents into the office before lunch. I didn't hear everything they said, but I heard enough. "She's resisting the new process," Madison said calmly. "I expected that." My mother's voice was softer. "She's always been emotional about the bakery." "Emotional?" Madison replied, "That's the issue. This is a business, not a personal project." A few minutes later, my father came out of the office and avoided looking at me. That was when I understood the second part of her plan. She wasn't just taking the bakery. She was turning my parents against me. By afternoon, things shifted again. Madison handed my father a printed report. I caught a glimpse of the heading: Operational Concerns. She explained it loudly enough for me to hear. "Customer satisfaction is declining," she said. "Costs are high. Productivity is inconsistent." None of that was true. Those numbers were taken from our busiest holiday weeks. The months when wait times were longer because people lined up before sunrise. The costs ignored the equipment I had personally paid for. The productivity numbers erased the catering orders I handled quietly on the side. But my parents nodded. That hurt more than the takeover itself. Later, my mother pulled me aside. "Why didn't you tell us things were getting this bad?" "They're not," I said. She sighed. "Madison showed us proof." "Proof?" That evening, Madison reassigned tasks again. Mrs. Patterson was told to speed up her decorating. Tommy was questioned about his routes. Sarah was corrected in front of customers. One by one, confidence drained from the room. Before closing, Madison stopped me near the prep table. "We need to talk about your recipes," she said. I froze. "All items developed here belong to the company," she continued. "We'll be cataloging everything." I didn't answer. She smiled politely. "Just procedure." That night, I lay awake replaying every moment of the past week. The papers, the reports, the quiet comments meant to plant doubt. Madison wasn't reacting to problems. She was creating them. And the worst part was how well it was working. By the end of the week, my parents barely spoke to me. When they did, their tone had changed. Careful, distant, like I was already a problem they didn't know how to handle. Madison stood between us now, calm and professional, guiding every conversation. I realized something then that made my stomach turn. She didn't need to fire me yet. She just needed to make sure no one would believe me when she did. By the start of the second week, the bakery didn't feel like the same place anymore. The ovens were the same. The walls were the same, but the air had changed. People spoke less. Mrs. Patterson arrived earlier than usual and left later, trying to keep up with Madison's new timing rules. Madison stood behind her more often now, watching her hands, checking the clock, making notes. "Faster doesn't mean sloppy," Madison said one morning. Mrs. Patterson nodded without looking up. Her hands shook slightly as she piped frosting. Tommy was pulled into the office twice in one day. "Your delivery routes aren't optimized," Madison told him. "You take too long with customers." Tommy looked confused. "I talk to them because they ask questions." Madison didn't smile. "That's inefficient." Sarah was corrected at the counter, in front of customers. "We don't chat," Madison said sharply. "We process orders." The customers noticed. One woman asked me quietly, "Is everything okay here?" I didn't know how to answer. That afternoon, Mrs. Patterson asked me to step outside with her. We stood in the alley behind the bakery where the noise couldn't reach us. "She's been timing me," she said softly. "Yesterday she said my hands aren't steady enough anymore." I felt my jaw tighten. "That's not true." "She wants me to use pre-made decorations," Mrs. Patterson continued. "Plastic ones." She had been decorating cakes longer than Madison had been alive. "I think she wants me gone," she said. I didn't lie. "I think she wants everyone gone." The next day, Madison crossed a line she couldn't uncross. A regular customer came in asking for a cake Mrs. Patterson was known for. Madison interrupted before I could respond. That design is no longer available, she said. It doesn't meet our new standards. The customer frowned. Mrs. Patterson made my daughter's wedding cake. Madison replied, we're moving forward. The customer left. On Friday morning, Madison called Mrs. Patterson into the kitchen early. I was there. I saw everything. She held up a cake border. This isn't uniform. Corporate standards require precision. Mrs. Patterson whispered, I'll redo it. At your age, improvement is limited, Madison said flatly. We need to discuss whether this role still fits you. I stepped forward. That's enough. Madison turned slowly. This doesn't concern you. It does, I said. She built this place. Madison's expression didn't change. Sentiment doesn't pay wages. She told Mrs. Patterson to go home and think about other options. Mrs. Patterson untied her apron with shaking hands. Before she left, she looked at me and said quietly, I'm sorry. When she was gone, Madison turned back to her clipboard. We'll adjust staffing next week, she said. That was when I knew. This wasn't pressure. This was a purge. The bakery lost something after Mrs. Patterson went home early that day. No one said it out loud, but everyone felt it. The next morning, her station was empty. Madison didn't mention it, she just reassigned the work. We'll simplify cake designs, she said. Consistency matters more than detail. Customers started noticing changes they couldn't explain. The bread tasted slightly different. The fillings were thinner. Items that used to sell out by noon stayed in the display until closing. A man who came in every Saturday asked me, Did you change the recipe? Before I could answer, Madison stepped in. We improved it, she said. He nodded politely, but didn't buy anything. Madison spent more time in the office now, on calls she took with the door half closed. I heard fragments. Buyers want proof. Scale this easily. Once staff is replaced. Every sentence confirmed what I already knew. Then came the folder. Madison handed it to me near closing time. Manila, thick. We need to clarify ownership, she said. Inside were photocopies of my grandmother's handwritten recipes, pages I had brought in years ago to reference technique, notes in my handwriting, dates, adjustments. These belong to the company, Madison said calmly. You'll sign the transfer agreement. I looked at the last page. My name was typed beneath a blank signature line. These recipes existed before this bakery, I said. She shrugged. You refine them here. What if I don't sign? Madison smiled, not kindly. Then you're refusing company policy, she said. I'll have to let you go. There it was, clean, simple. If I signed, she owned everything. If I didn't, I was out. Take the weekend, she added. I'll need an answer Monday morning. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my grandmother's original notebook in front of me. The pages were yellowed, the handwriting uneven, dates from decades ago. Madison thought she had trapped me. What she didn't know was that I had kept records of everything. Payments I made, equipment I bought, orders I handled alone, messages from customers, photos, receipts. And more importantly, she didn't know I had heard her voice on that phone call. By morning, my fear had turned into something sharper. If she wanted a fight, she had just pushed me into one. And I wasn't going to lose quietly. Monday morning arrived too fast. I walked into the bakery, knowing the question was waiting for me. Madison was already there, standing by the office door with the same calm expression she always wore. The folder sat on the desk behind her. She didn't greet me. She didn't need to. Have you made a decision? She asked. I need more time, I said. Her smile tightened. That won't be possible. She stepped aside and pointed at the chair across from the desk. My parents were already inside. That part hurt more than I expected. Madison spoke first. She's refusing to sign the agreement. My father looked confused. Why wouldn't you? Because those recipes aren't company property, I said. Some of them are older than the bakery itself. Madison slid a document across the desk. Our legal counsel disagrees. I picked it up. The wording was careful, too careful. My mother sighed. Why are you making this difficult? That was when I realized how deep Madison's influence had gone. She had framed everything already. Resistance meant guilt. Questions meant instability. "I'm not trying to cause problems," I said. "I'm trying to protect what belongs to this family." Madison leaned back in her chair. "This is exactly the behavior I warned you about." "Warned them." "She's emotionally attached," Madison continued. "She can't separate feelings from business." My father rubbed his forehead. "We can't afford delays." Delays, like this was a shipment, not a life. Madison stood. "If she won't cooperate, we need to consider termination." The word landed hard. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to say something. Anything. My mother looked down. That was my answer. Madison handed me a printed notice. "You're suspended pending review, effective immediately." Suspended. I untied my apron slowly. No one stopped me. As I walked out, I passed Mrs. Patterson in the parking lot. She was sitting in her car, hands folded in her lap. "They told me not to come back," she said quietly. I nodded. "They're clearing the place out." She looked at me. "You're not going to let her do this, are you?" I didn't answer. I didn't know how. That afternoon, I made a call I had been avoiding. James Morrison answered on the second ring. "I need a lawyer," I said. "Now." He didn't ask questions. "Come in." By evening, everything was laid out on his desk. The documents, the forged language, the timeline, the phone call I had overheard. "This isn't just unethical," he said slowly. "This is fraud." For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to control. Madison thought she had silenced me. She hadn't. She had just given me proof. James didn't rush me. He read every page carefully, twice in some places. He listened without interrupting while I explained how the takeover had happened, how the reports appeared, how my parents changed. When I finished, he leaned back. "She didn't just plan a sale," he said. "She built a case to remove you first." He pointed at the recipe agreement. "Family recipes that existed before employment can't be claimed like this." "What about my parents signing everything over to her?" I asked. "If the transfer was based on false information," he said, "it can be challenged." I exhaled slowly. "She's planning to sell the bakery." James nodded. "I believe you, but belief isn't enough." He tapped the desk. "We need evidence, intent, proof that she knowingly lied." I thought of the phone call. The words "corporate buyers" echoed in my head. "I heard her," I said, "but I didn't record it." "Then we get her to talk again," James said. The next few days felt strange. I wasn't allowed inside the bakery. Madison told my parents I needed time to cool off. They didn't argue. From the outside, things changed fast. Mrs. Patterson's position was listed as under review. Tommy's hours were cut. Sarah stopped answering my messages, not because she didn't care, but because she was scared. James advised me to start documenting everything. "Write it down," he said. "Dates, times, names." I did more than that. I went through old files at home. Photos from renovations I paid for, receipts, customer emails thanking me by name, orders Madison never mentioned in her reports. Then I visited Mrs. Patterson. She showed me a small notebook, every comment Madison had made, every criticism, every time she had been timed, corrected, or threatened. "She wanted me to quit," Mrs. Patterson said, "so it would look voluntary." Tommy had his own notes. Customers asking questions, complaints Madison ignored, routes she called inefficient even though nothing was late. The pattern was clear. Madison wasn't improving the bakery. She was stripping it. Midweek, James called me. "I need her on record." That afternoon, I returned to the bakery under the excuse of collecting personal items. Madison didn't object. She watched me closely. "You could still make this easy," she said. "Sign the agreement." "I just want clarity," I replied, "about the future." She smiled. "The future is growth." "Growth into what?" I asked. She hesitated, just for a second. "Something bigger," she said, "something scalable." It wasn't enough, not yet. As I walked out, her phone rang. She stepped into the office. I didn't plan it, I just stopped. And listened. Her voice dropped again. "We need to move faster," she said. "She's starting to push back." I pulled my phone from my pocket and hit record. This time, I wasn't going to miss it. I stood there without moving, my phone hidden in my hand, the screen dark but recording. Madison's voice was clear through the half-closed door. "She thinks she still has leverage," Madison said. "She doesn't." There was a pause, then a man's voice answered, low, confident. "Once the recipes are documented, she's irrelevant." Madison laughed softly. "Exactly. That's why we need everything finalized within 2 weeks. 2 weeks? The buyers are getting impatient," the man said. "They want proof the brand can run without the original staff." "It will," Madison replied. "I've already started replacing ingredients, cheaper suppliers, same appearance, no one notices." My stomach tightened. "And the parents?" he asked. "They're completely convinced," Madison said. "They think I saved the business. They thank me for it." Another pause. "She didn't sign the recipe transfer yet," Madison continued. "But it doesn't matter. I'll document non-cooperation and terminate her. After that, ownership defaults to the company." "Terminate?" "And the staff?" the man asked. "They go," Madison said without hesitation. "All of them. Experience is expensive, machines are cheaper." The word machines echoed in my head. "Once the sale is complete," she added, "we walk away clean. 7 figures minimum." 7 figures? The call ended. I stepped back just as Madison opened the door. She didn't notice anything different about me. "Did you get your things?" she asked. "Yes," I said. She smiled. "Good, we'll talk again soon." I nodded and walked out without looking back. In my car, I sat still for a full minute before pressing stop. My hands were shaking. That night I played the recording for James. He listened once, then again. "This is it," he said. "This proves intent." The next step was risky. James explained it carefully. "If we move too fast, she'll destroy evidence. If we wait too long, she completes the sale." "What do you suggest?" I asked. "We confront her parents," he said, "with proof." The idea made my chest tighten. My parents had already chosen her once. The next morning, I went to the bakery before opening. My parents were there, drinking coffee in the office. Madison hadn't arrived yet. "I need you to listen to something," I said. They looked confused. My father frowned. My mother folded her arms. I placed my phone on the desk and pressed play. Madison's voice filled the room. "Corporate buyers. Termination. 7 figures." My mother's face drained of color. My father stood up slowly, gripping the edge of the desk. "This isn't real," my mother whispered. "It's her voice," I said. The office door opened. Madison walked in and saw all 3 of us staring at her. Madison stopped just inside the doorway. For a moment, her face was blank, like she was measuring the room. "What's going on?" she asked. My father didn't answer. He picked up my phone and held it out. "Explain this," he said. Madison listened to her own voice. Corporate buyers, termination, sale. Her expression shifted, but only slightly. "That conversation was taken out of context," she said quickly. "It was a hypothetical discussion." "A hypothetical sale?" my mother asked, her voice shaking. Madison moved closer to the desk. "Strategic planning requires exploring options." James stepped forward. "I'm James Morrison, legal counsel." Madison froze. James placed copies of documents on the desk. "We have evidence of manipulated reports, forged agreements, and intent to commit fraud." Madison laughed nervously. "This is absurd." The door opened again. A man in a tailored suit walked in, confident, calm. "I'm Derek," he said. "There seems to be some confusion." James didn't look at him. "Mr. Collins, your involvement is already documented." Derek's smile faded. My father finally spoke. "You lied to us." Madison turned toward him. "I was protecting the business." "By selling it?" my mother asked. Silence. James continued. "We'll be filing formal complaints." Derek checked his phone. "We should talk privately." Madison shook her head. "No." Her control was slipping. Within hours, everything changed. James contacted the district office. Investigators requested records. Banks froze accounts connected to the sale. By the next day, news spread fast. Customers came in asking questions. Staff whispered. Mrs. Patterson returned, not to work but to stand. Tommy brought written statements. Sarah followed. Madison stayed in the office, making calls that went unanswered. By Friday, Derek was gone. Madison was left alone. The bakery was closed for restructuring. My parents sat in the office in silence, staring at the walls. I didn't feel victory. I felt exhaustion. But it wasn't over yet. Not for her. And not for me. The investigation didn't arrive with sirens. It arrived quietly. 2 people came in the next morning with notebooks and calm voices. They asked for files, emails, financial records. Madison tried to take control of the conversation, but no one followed her lead anymore. My parents watched from the corner of the office, stunned. Madison answered questions carefully at first, then less carefully. When they asked about the recipe agreement, she said it was standard practice. When they asked why signatures didn't match earlier documents, she blamed formatting issues. When they asked about Derek, she said he was only an advisor. By the 3rd hour, her confidence was gone. The investigators left with copies of everything. That afternoon, the phone started ringing. Suppliers, a bank, someone from the city office. Madison stopped answering. Derek didn't come back. Later that day, I received a message from Tommy. People are asking if the bakery is closing. By evening, the story had spread through town. Customers came by just to look. Some left notes on the door. Others waited outside, hoping someone would explain. Mrs. Patterson stood with them, so did Sarah. No one planned it, it just happened. Madison stayed, locked in the office. The next morning, James called me early. Derek tried to destroy records. What? I asked. He panicked, James said. Maintenance found shredded documents behind his office building, enough to trigger a wider investigation. By noon, everything escalated. Accounts linked to Derek's company were frozen. His properties were flagged. Madison's name appeared on documents she couldn't explain away. She tried to speak to my parents again. This is getting out of control, she said. We need to contain it. My father didn't raise his voice. You already did enough. Madison looked at me. You planned this. No, I said, you did. That afternoon, she was formally removed from operations. The bakery stayed closed. Not sold. Not rebranded. Just frozen in time. I stood in the empty kitchen later that night. The ovens were cold, the counters clean, the silence heavy. This place had been my whole life. Now it was just a building. But something else was forming outside these walls. And Madison could feel it slipping through her fingers. The quiet didn't last. By the next morning, the parking lot filled before sunrise. Not customers, people, some I recognized, some I didn't. They stood in small groups, talking in low voices, staring at the locked door like it might answer them. My parents arrived and stopped when they saw the crowd. Mrs. Patterson stepped forward first. She held a folder against her chest. Tommy stood beside her. Sarah was there too. We're not here to cause trouble, Mrs. Patterson said. People just want to be heard. Inside, the office felt smaller than it ever had. The same desk, the same chairs, but nothing felt stable. James joined us again, this time with a clear plan. We document everything publicly, he said. Statements, timelines, facts. Madison wasn't there. She had been told not to return. One by one, people spoke. A customer explained how recipes had changed without warning. Another described being dismissed for asking questions. A restaurant owner talked about catering orders being canceled without explanation. Tommy handed over written statements, dozens of them. Mrs. Patterson placed her notebook on the desk. My father opened it and read in silence, page after page. My mother covered her mouth. She did this while smiling at us, my mother said quietly. That afternoon, the local paper called. Then another. By evening, the story wasn't just about a bakery. It was about trust, about manipulation, about how easily something familiar could be stripped apart. Madison tried calling that night. No one answered. The next day, James told us the timeline. 2 weeks, he said, that's how close she was. 2 weeks from losing everything. The bakery couldn't reopen yet. Legal locks were still in place, but something else was happening. People didn't leave. They kept showing up. Someone taped a note to the door. "We're waiting." I stood across the street and watched them. I didn't feel proud. I felt overwhelmed. That night, my parents sat with me at the kitchen table. No documents, no lawyers. "We were wrong," my father said. My mother nodded. We didn't listen. There was nothing else to say. The next morning, James called again. "The case is expanding." Derek's name was now tied to other businesses. Similar patterns, similar takeovers. Madison had been part of something larger than just us. And now, it was unraveling fast. But while everything collapsed around her, one truth became clear. The bakery might be closed. But it wasn't gone. Not yet. The call came early, before I had even finished my coffee. "Charges are being prepared," James said. "Forgery, fraud, conspiracy." I sat down slowly. Madison hadn't contacted me again. She went silent everywhere. No messages, no appearances, like she believed disappearing might undo what she had done. It didn't. By mid-morning, investigators returned to the bakery with boxes. They sealed cabinets, copied drives, took files Madison had carefully labeled as strategy and growth. My parents watched from the doorway. My mother whispered, "How did we miss all this?" No one answered. That afternoon, Derek's name appeared in the news. Not just ours, other businesses, other towns, same pattern, same outcome. Family owners pushed aside, assets sold, people left behind. Madison hadn't been leading anything. She had been following a script. The next day, my parents asked me to come with them to the bakery. Inside, the place felt hollow. The equipment sat unused. The display cases were empty. Madison's digital signage had already been removed. "I don't know what we do now," my father said. I looked around. "You can't undo what happened." "I know," he said, "but we need to decide what comes next." That was when I understood something clearly for the first time. Whatever came next didn't include me here. "I'm not coming back," I said. My mother looked up sharply. "You don't have to decide that now." "I already have," I replied. The bakery wasn't stolen from me. It was broken in a way that couldn't be fixed. That evening, Mrs. Patterson came to my apartment. She brought tea and a folder. "We've been talking," she said. "Who's we?" "Everyone who was pushed out," she answered, "and some people who never worked here but cared." She slid the folder across the table. Inside were names, locations, numbers. "A new place," she said. "Not tied to the old one, no family control, no secrets." I didn't speak. "We don't want revenge," she continued. "We want something clean." The idea scared me more than staying ever had. The next morning, Madison was officially charged. By afternoon, Derek was taken in for questioning. By night, the bakery that once defined my life was just a headline. And for the first time since all this started, I didn't feel trapped. I felt open. Like something else was about to begin. I didn't answer Mrs. Patterson right away. I needed time to sit with the idea. A new place meant starting from nothing. No history, no safety net, just work and risk. The next few days were quiet, too quiet. Madison appeared in court photos online. Head down, no blazer, no confidence. I didn't feel anything when I saw them. Not relief, not anger, just distance. My parents tried to talk more now. They asked what I was planning. I kept my answers short. "I'm thinking." They nodded like they understood, but I could tell they were afraid of being left behind. On Thursday, I met Mrs. Patterson, Tommy, and Sarah at a small cafe. We sat around a scratched wooden table. No one talked about the bakery at first. Tommy broke the silence. "I can't go back there even if it reopens." Sarah nodded. "Neither can I." Mrs. Patterson looked at me. "That place is poisoned." She opened the folder again. This time I looked. There was a lease option for an old corner space downtown. Exposed brick, large windows, empty for years. Rent was low because the owner wanted something stable. Tommy had mapped delivery routes already. Sarah had outlined customer flow. Mrs. Patterson had supplier contacts ready to move. "You've been planning this," I said. "We started planning the moment she sent me home," Mrs. Patterson replied. That night I couldn't sleep. I walked through my apartment, imagining counters that didn't exist yet, ovens I hadn't touched, a space without history weighing it down. The next morning, James called. She's asking for a deal, he said. Madison wanted reduced charges, cooperation, silence. No, I said immediately. James paused. You're sure? She made choices, I said, so did I. That afternoon, I signed nothing, promised nothing, I just kept moving forward. By the end of the week, the lease was pending. I walked past the old bakery once more. The windows were dark. A notice was taped to the door. Legal language, temporary closure. I didn't stop. I kept walking. Because whatever that place was now, it wasn't mine anymore. And whatever I was building next didn't need to look back to survive. The lease was finalized on Monday morning. I stood inside the new space with the keys in my hand, listening to the echo of my own footsteps. Dust coated the floor. The walls were bare. The windows were tall and cracked, letting in light that felt unfamiliar. This is it, Tommy said behind me. Mrs. Patterson walked slowly along the wall, touching the brick like she was memorizing it. It's honest, she said. That's enough. We didn't celebrate, we started working. Cleaning took days, scraping, painting, repairing things no one had touched in years. No one complained, no one rushed. It felt different from the bakery already. News about Madison continued to spread. Court dates, charges, Derek's name attached to more businesses than we realized. Every time a new article appeared, someone sent it to me. I stopped opening them. What mattered was here. Suppliers started calling once they heard where we were going. Some offered discounts, some offered credit. One said, "We were waiting for you to leave that place." James handled the legal side quietly. Madison's ownership transfer was officially frozen. The bakery was tied up indefinitely. My parents asked if I wanted the space back if it ever reopened. I don't, I said. They didn't argue. One afternoon, while measuring the kitchen layout, Mrs. Patterson stopped suddenly. She's outside, she said. I turned. Madison stood across the street, watching the building. She looked smaller somehow. No folder, no phone, just standing there like she didn't know where to go. She didn't cross the road, she didn't wave. After a moment, she walked away. That was the last time I saw her in person. By the end of the week, equipment arrived. Used ovens, refurbished mixers, nothing fancy, everything functional. We worked late into the night. No speeches, no promises. Just movement. On Sunday evening, we stood in the empty kitchen, exhausted. This won't be easy, Sarah said. No, I replied. But it felt clean. No lies, no hidden plans, no paperwork waiting to erase someone. For the first time in months, I wasn't bracing myself for the next blow. I was building something that couldn't be taken from me by surprise. We opened quietly. No announcement, no article, no ribbon. The sign went up in the morning, simple lettering, nothing else. By noon, someone had already walked in. I smelled bread, the woman said, thought I'd follow it. Tommy smiled and handed her a loaf still warm. Word moved faster than anything we could have planned. By the second day, the line reached the sidewalk. By the third, people were waiting before sunrise again, not because of nostalgia, because the food was right. Mrs. Patterson worked without a clock over her head. Her hands were steady again. The cakes looked like themselves. Sarah spoke to customers the way she always had. Names remembered, orders explained, no rushing. Someone asked, "Is this the same bakery?" No, I said, it's different. They nodded and stayed. Meanwhile, the old bakery stayed closed. Legal notices multiplied on the door. Madison's name appeared again in court filings. Derek's situation worsened, charges expanded, assets seized. My parents visited once. They stood near the counter quietly. It's busy, my mother said. Yes, I replied. She didn't ask to help. They left without staying long. That evening, James called. Madison accepted a plea. I didn't ask for details. She wanted to speak to you, he added. No, I said. There was nothing left to say. The next week, a local paper ran a small piece. Not about fraud, about the new bakery, about how familiar faces had returned somewhere else. Customers brought flowers, notes. One taped a photo of the old storefront beside the new one. Mrs. Patterson took it down gently. "We don't need that," she said. The past stayed where it belonged. Late one night after closing, I stood alone in the kitchen. The ovens hummed softly. The counters were warm. I thought about how close I came to losing everything, and how close she came to winning. But she had built her plan on silence and speed. We had built ours on people. That difference was enough. Outside, someone knocked on the glass, holding a phone. "Sorry," they said, "just wanted to ask when you open tomorrow." I smiled. The old bakery officially went up for sale the following month. Not the kind of sale Madison wanted. No corporate buyers. No bundled assets. Just a quiet listing buried under legal restrictions and warnings no investor wanted to touch. I drove past it once when the sign appeared. The windows were still covered, dust on the glass. The name faded slightly, like it had already started disappearing. I didn't stop. At the new place, mornings were loud again. Trays sliding, timers ringing, people talking over each other. Real noise, not the tense silence we'd gotten used to. We were tired all the time, but it was the good kind. One afternoon, James came by unannounced. He stood at the counter, looking around. "You did the right thing," he said. "I didn't plan to," I replied. He nodded. "Most people don't." He didn't stay long. Lawyers never do. A week later, my parents asked if we could meet somewhere neutral. Not the bakery, not their house. We met at a park. They didn't talk about Madison at first. They talked about small things, weather, neighbors, anything but what mattered. Finally, my father said, "We failed you." I didn't respond. "We trusted paperwork over people," my mother added. "We won't make that mistake again." I believed they meant it. That didn't mean anything changed. "I'm not coming back," I said, "ever." My mother nodded. "We know." The old bakery remained closed. No reopening date, no new name, just a locked door. At our place, we hired 2 apprentices. Young, nervous, eager. Mrs. Patterson took them under her wing without saying much. She didn't need to. Tommy expanded deliveries. Sarah redesigned the counter flow. Everyone moved like they belonged there. One night, as we cleaned up, Sarah asked, "Do you think she understands what she lost?" I wiped the counter slowly. I don't think she ever understood what she had. Outside, the lights of the street reflected off the windows. People walked past, pointing, talking, laughing. This wasn't revenge. It was replacement. And it worked better than anything else ever could. The rhythm settled in after that. Not routine, not comfort, just balance. We learned what worked and what didn't without anyone forcing timelines or cutting corners. Some days were chaotic. Some days were quiet. No one pretended otherwise. One evening, after closing, Mrs. Patterson stayed behind while the others left. She sat at the prep table, slowly cleaning her tools. "I never thought I'd start over at my age," she said. "You didn't start over," I replied. "You brought everything with you." She smiled slightly. The apprentices were learning fast. Not just recipes, but patience. How to fix mistakes without panic. How to talk to customers without selling them something they didn't want. That mattered more than output. A month later, we added one small catering order. Then another, nothing aggressive, nothing scaled, just enough to stretch without breaking. Tommy managed it quietly. Sarah handled scheduling, no meetings, no charts on the wall. One afternoon, a woman came in and stood at the counter longer than necessary. She looked familiar. "You don't remember me," she said, "but I was at the old place every Friday." I nodded. "I remember." She looked around. "This feels better." That was all she said. News about Madison slowed. Sentencing dates replaced headlines. Derek disappeared completely from the business pages. My parents stopped asking about court updates. They started asking about ours instead. They came in occasionally, not to help, not to interfere, just to buy bread like everyone else. We kept it that way. Late one night, I stayed alone again, finishing prep for the morning. The lights were low, the city outside quiet. I thought about how close I had come to signing that paper. How easy it would have been to give in just to stop the pressure. Everything I had now existed because I didn't. This place wasn't bigger than the old bakery. It didn't need to be. It was stable, and that was enough. When I locked the door, I didn't look over my shoulder. There was nothing chasing me anymore. Winter came slowly. The kind that settles in without drama. The mornings were darker. The ovens took longer to heat. Steam fogged the windows while people waited outside, hands in pockets, talking quietly until we opened the door. Business didn't explode, it held. That mattered more. The apprentices started taking responsibility for their own stations. Mrs. Patterson watched from a distance now, stepping in only when needed. She never corrected loudly. She showed. Once. Tommy hired another driver, someone local, someone who already knew half the customers by name. Sarah adjusted hours so no one burned out. When someone needed time off, they took it. No explanations required. One afternoon, James stopped by again, this time without a folder. "Sentencing is done," he said. "Probation, restitution, no ownership rights in any business for years." I nodded, "Okay." "That's it?" he asked. "That's it." He smiled once and left. The old bakery was sold to an investor from out of town, not to reopen, to renovate into something else. No one fought it. When the sign came down, I didn't feel anything. At our place, someone taped up a new notice near the register. Hiring, apprentices welcome. We didn't advertise beyond that. People still found us. A couple came in one evening with photos on their phone. They wanted a cake design they'd saved years ago, something detailed, time-consuming. Mrs. Patterson looked at the photo, then at the calendar. "Yes," she said, "we can do that." They left smiling. After closing, Sarah leaned against the counter. "You know," she said, "this is what people thought the old place was." I wiped my hands. They were wrong. She shook her head. No, they just hadn't seen this yet. I stayed late again, alone with the hum of the refrigeration and the faint smell of sugar in the air. This time, the quiet didn't feel heavy. It felt finished. The first anniversary passed without anyone mentioning it. No sign, no post, no reminder on the wall. We opened, worked, closed, and went home like any other day. That night, after everyone left, I stayed behind to finish prep. The kitchen was quiet except for the low hum of the ovens cooling down. Flour dust floated in the air when I wiped the counter. I thought about how the ending was supposed to look back then. A confrontation, apologies, something dramatic. None of that happened. Madison never came back, not to argue, not to explain, not to ask for anything. Her name faded out of conversation the same way it faded out of the news. Slowly, completely. My parents adjusted in their own way. They stopped trying to fix things with words. They didn't bring the past into the room anymore. When they came in, they stood in line like everyone else. That was enough. The bakery ran because people showed up. Not because of plans or documents, not because of ownership papers. Because every morning, someone unlocked the door and started working. Mrs. Patterson trained the apprentices until they stopped calling her for every small thing. Tommy ran deliveries without checking his phone every 5 minutes. Sarah kept the place steady without needing permission. No one was replaceable, no one was trapped. Late that night, I turned off the lights one by one. The room went dark except for the glow from the street outside. I locked the door and stood there for a moment, keys still in my hand. The old bakery had been taken apart piece by piece. Not by fire, not by force, by paperwork and silence. This one was held together by people who refused to leave when it got hard. I walked to my car without looking back. Tomorrow would be another early morning, another batch, another line forming before sunrise. Nothing dramatic. Just work that couldn't be signed away. You have reached the end of the text.